Hey guys, this is your girl Paula, the queen from Queens. These are money minutes that matter. It's a talk show where you call me with financial questions and I'll give you financial answers. You and I, we become accountability buddies. We walk hand in hand to eliminate debt, to help you maximize your financial future, and to optimize your health. But these are my special monthly segments. I call these segments the cost of living. Living has a price. We can live from day to day. We can go on the way we've been doing it, or we can do something different. What are your inner drives? What are your external drives? What are the things that we're hearing in our ears from our families, from our communities, from our educators? What's driving us to be or just to do? Oprah says it best. I can, I will, watch me. So this is my show. And on this show, I have one of my really good friends. Her name is Lorraine Gordon. She is the managing director of Lead with Heart, LLC. She's an executive coach. She's a facilitator and a strategic HR consultant. This chick is brilliant and I love her. I'm so glad she's on the show with us. So this is going to be another amazing show. I'm glad you're tuned in, and I know that you're going to hear the words from her and appreciate that you can too. If she's a girl from Philly and I'm a girl from Far Rockaway and we did it, so can you. Let's get on with the show. Hey, Lorraine, how are you?
Oh, I'm great, Paula. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on your show.
Absolutely. I'm so glad. We talked about this as soon as COVID hit. And we were talking about entrepreneurship and how to get the mindset to shift towards ownership, becoming an entrepreneur, doing what's in your heart, your inner driver. So I'm so glad you're here with me today. So you're the owner and the managing director of Lead with Heart. What is that all about, Lead with Heart?
So it's a baby company. It just started, and I do coaching, leadership development, facilitation, and consulting and advising in the areas of leadership development. And so Lead with Heart, it's so interesting. I got the title while I was walking one evening. I got the title as well as my logo while walking. That's my sort of cathartic thing, walking, especially during this COVID season. And so much of what's been important for me is sort of living from the inside out, living from an authentic place. So it was natural for me to think about leading and living from the inside out. And so I came up with Lead with Heart. Related to that is, I believe, and I think it's connected to this conversation, Paula, is everything we do is about leading our lives. We're leading our emotions, we're leading our families, we're leading our homes, we're leading organizations. And today we're going to talk about how we are leading our finances, right? And
Yes,
how
ma'am.
it relates to leadership and values, right? How it relates to leadership and values. But everything kind of drives from the inside out. So I'm excited to talk about how our values drive our money habits. And how we lead around our money.
Well, we need to give the audience an understanding of our relationship.
Oh, okay.
Now, we've been friends for maybe 7 or 8 years.
At least 8 or more, because that's when life group.
So we're a part of a Christian women's group, and you're now one of the lead facilitators.
Yes. I have had the opportunity to lead with both Stephanie and Valerie. And Stephanie is just, amazing in that she started this group 8 years ago, right? 8.5 years ago, and we are still here. And in the more recent year, Valerie and I have joined her in holding and supporting the group. So.
But it's interesting. We started out small, right? It was just, originally we started out as a Christian couples group. And the women said women need together and bind together and encourage each other. So then we formed the Christian women's group. And you would think after 8 years, it would die out. It hasn't. Everyone wants to be a part of what we're doing. We are like a life source.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're leading and changing.
We're a tribe, right?
Yeah, we are, right? Not just as individuals, but as our families, as
Yeah,
mothers, women, entrepreneurs. We're a tremendous support for each other. And people don't seem to have
absolutely.
that in our community.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's been so meaningful for me, and came at a very, very pivotal time just when I was going through a divorce. And I needed these women to uphold me and support me and be with me. And it's been incredible. It really, really has.
So it's really interesting, Lorraine. When I met you 8 years ago and you said to me, you're a executive coach, I'm thinking, what the heck is that?
What
Is
is
that a
that?
job title? Did you go to college for that? What is an executive coach? So now I'm a money coach. Go figure that.
Do you have an idea now? Do you have a better idea? Helping leaders become better leaders, and you're helping people manage their money better. It's coaching people, right? Keeping them accountable.
So
So now you know.
I do. So it's so interesting, Lorraine. I have my great nieces and nephews with me here from New York, and we're talking about things. What do we value? And when people look at money, we look at what money can do for us, right? Buy us a big home, buy us a fancy car, buy us stuff that we see on the outside. But that's not the money value that we're trying to convey. What value should we look at when we look at money and growth and generational wealth?
Oh, that's a great question, Paula. So first of all, it's important to even know what your values are. You know, values are like a shortcut to knowing what's important to us, what our priorities are, um, how it drives how we make decisions, how we behave. And values are things like security, family, friendship, achievement. Like a value for our women's life group that you were just talking about would be something around community, you know, community connection. These are sort of values that drive us. It could be clarity, trust, all those kind of things. But when we talk about money, a lot of people think money is a value. Money isn't a value. Money is, you know, a value around money. It may be a means, but it is not the value itself. Independence, financial security, those things are values, but not money. Money, it isn't a value in and of itself.
Right.
So yeah, key things that I think, so the first thing is knowing what the values are, knowing what your values are, and then we can talk about, you know, a next step of how do you build awareness around how those values are driving your behaviors and decisions and money habits, right?
So money is just a tool. It's a matter of how we use the tool, right? Because you're not going to take a screwdriver and use it as a plier. You're not going to take a screwdriver and use it as a hammer. Money's a tool,
Right.
and what we use it for determines the outcome of and the purpose of the money. So let's talk about some of the inner drivers. We talk about what drives us, right? A lot of us look at what we see on the outside as a driver. We don't look at what's on the inside that are our driving forces. Is it your values from home? Is it something that your parents implemented into you? Is it what we see with like an Oprah Winfrey or a LeBron James or Michael Jordan? I watched Michael Jordan's special, and it was The Final Dance. And we learned what drove Michael Jordan. Every day he worked. He committed the time, he committed himself, and he made himself the Michael Jordan that we all know and love. So let's talk about the inner drivers.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful setup. So drivers can be things like achievement. It could be wanting to make a difference in the world. It could be community. And so another thing is, Paula, when you think about what creates our inner drivers, a lot of times is what we see. It's what we see. I remember when I was in my 20s, I remember my mom was a single mom, and my mom used a lot of credit cards to just help us, you know, make ends meet. And so I saw that and I thought, okay, I'm going to get credit cards. And I remember being in college. I remember you go in my wallet and you see like 8, 10 different credit cards. And I thought I was doing something. But they had all kinds of debt on there because you watch what you see. And I can't, you know, as I think about that, even as I think, so our values are different when we're in our 20s as we get older, you know. So I think also as we are in our 20s and 30s, maybe even a little into her 40s, sometimes it's about, building your life. It's like, when I was 26, I did invest in a condo. I bought my first home, and because I also saw that too. You start to get drivers from looking at the people around you, what you see. And at the time in my 20s, somebody said home ownership is a good thing. It's a good investment. Yes, it has turned out to be, and I've since bought other homes. But drivers are the things that lead us to spend, to invest, to save, or to create debt. It just depends. There's something on the inside of us that generates our behaviors, and underneath that are values. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And unfortunately, Lorraine, people don't see debt as something negative. We have a $13 trillion personal debt in this country. Talking about credit cards, right? And being in college, we all had that accordion, red, white, blue, green, yellow, orange, right? But
Yes,
if you think about debt, right? So in our nation, we have about 300 million credit cards. And if each card paid $10 a month in just interest, that's $3 billion that the institutions are getting from us for free. So we don't realize that debt is abnormal. Debt is a disease. It's a disease that we need to cure. That's my motto. Debt's a disease
no,
that we need to cure.
I love your model, but I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah,
I thought it was okay, because that was how I saw it. Of course, later I learned, cut up those credit cards, get rid of that debt. And now, I certainly hold a value of financial freedom and financial independence
of
and
course.
security and those kinds of things. But I think that sometimes age drives it too, not unless you get those lessons early on. I was also going to mention that sometimes I think early in life, a lot of times, especially in our community, sometimes it's keeping up with appearances. So we may spend more than we actually have. Sometimes, Paula, our spending is fear-based and is coming from a fearful place. And you can have, especially earlier in our lives, sometimes our spending is around keeping up appearances. And so sometimes we may feel like, I don't have enough, I'm not loved, I am just not enough. So in that emotional space of emotional spending, we may spend or accumulate more debt than we should, because we're trying to feel something on the inside. It's not on the outside. So a lot of times when you see a lot of accumulation, a lot of stuff, we're really trying to feel something emotionally that's on the inside of us, but we're trying to use it externally. So the more we identify the values, as we first talked about, and then kind of really get some awareness of what's driving all this spending, investing, whatever it is we're doing.
Yeah. And I remember you led one of our groups years ago, and you talked about EQ, emotional intelligence. And one of the things that you imparted, which I remember to this day, 5 or 6 years later, I'm beautiful, I'm worthy, and I'm enough. And when you note that, then maybe you don't have the emotional spending. Those things that drive you into the mall because you're depressed. Those things that drive you into the mall, although you need to pay your tuition or your light bill is due, you buy a new pair of shoes. So let's talk about making some mindset shifts. Let's talk about aligning our values with how we can build a better and a different tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So thanks for remembering that. That's one of my key affirmations that I've had to use for myself, in feeling enough and feeling worthy, because I spent so many years achieving so much, educating myself so much, doing so much versus just being in the space of self-love. And so first, I think it's just to be with that and to kind of have an awareness of when we go to shop or spend, or right now a lot of things are online with COVID, to ask ourselves, why am I buying this? What value is it supporting? What need is not fulfilled, or is it fulfilling? So I think just pausing and stopping and asking, what value does this support, is one way to align our values with our spending. And if it doesn't support a value around family, community, connection, I would say another thing is cutting up credit cards. Cut them up. You just don't need them all. You hold a philosophy, I think, Paula, to not have any, or is it just one? I always keep one for shopping or online or something. So
That's right.
you know what I
That's
mean?
right.
But I would say paying them off, cut them off, you cut them up and then pay them off. Self-reflection. But you're right. A lot of it has been looking around, and it's very people who are close to us. You know, we watch our family members, we watch our aunties, we watch our girlfriends, we watch people on television, and we feel like, we didn't talk about the power of advertisement. Oh my gosh, I used to be in a marketing career. Advertising is all about seducing you to think you have to have this crock pot, you have to have this Vitamix, you have to have this new refrigerator because your neighbors have it, or because, but it's like, really? If we are in touch, again, going back to step one, in touch with our values, asking ourselves, why am I purchasing this? Why am I interested in this? It helps us get back to realignment and not being in the space of having a value over here, but having behaviors out here that are not aligning to the values. So, yeah.
But that's what I'm getting at. The picture may look perfect on the outside, but it takes work. Right?
It
You
does
had to
take work.
educate yourself. You had to recognize if you wanted to accomplish your goal, you had to set out to do something. And one of your philosophies when I heard your recent radio podcast was stop doing, start doing, stop doing, continue doing. So when you were achieving who the Lorraine Gordon is today, what did you have to do differently from who Lorraine Gordon was before? How did you achieve all these things?
So I stopped letting outside views drive what I decide to spend or invest in. I stopped using a bunch of credit cards. I stopped buying things if I didn't have the money. And I adopt the philosophy, if I don't have the money, I just wait until I have the money. I started really paying attention to why I was buying something and making sure it aligned with my personal values. I continued, the work of sort of self-worth and that self-valuing and self-integrity is a lifetime journey. I continued that, and the more I felt a sense of inner authenticity and congruency, I felt more aligned and at ease and grounded with my money choices. I'll give you an example. For example, I value education. So I wanted to make sure I invested a 529 plan for my daughters so that when they go to college, that they would not have a lot of college debt. I also value home ownership. I value the sense of security and stability, and so I invested in home ownership. Haven't paid my house off yet, but it has definitely provided a lot of it certainly has provided a lot of equity and a lot of sense of security, but sense of community. Even when I have the ladies at my home, just like you host at your beautiful home, I love hosting at my home. It's a reflection of me. And so I started just really looking at what some of my core values were. And I was going to mention, Paula, that one of you can go online and there are a lot of instruments out there for you to do your values and get a sense of what are drivers for you. But even when I did my values, and one of them is the Barrett, I often talk about the Barrett values assessment, but some of my values were around coaching and mentoring, continuous learning, always learning. So I will spend money on books, webinars, workshops. I will spend time with family. And if that means investing time in family, whether it's a meal, vacationing together, those were just some of the things. Friendship is on my list of values, trust. So I think that gets at some of the stop, start, continue, Paula.
Yeah.
Get it somehow?
See, I want to help to change the narrative. I want to change the stories that we hear in our head, the narratives that we see in our communities. There was an article that was in Forbes, and the name of the article is The 2% Solution. inside billionaire Robert Smith's bold panel to funnel billions to America's Black-owned businesses. And it goes on to say that Smith said Black and minority communities have been abandoned by large banks and starved of capital needed to build businesses and local institutions. Smith argues that pumping in what we described as reparative capital and investing directly into financial architecture would be a fast way to advance economic justice for Black Americans. So this goes back to inner drive, right? So I have this YouTube channel. I'm on the radio, EAJ1023radio.com, and this segment is seen every Monday. But I want people to have that inner drive. What are the values that we may have learned something different as a child? I grew up in inner city New York. You grew up in Philadelphia. So we recognize that working hard is the determining factor of where we go tomorrow. So I want to help to drive my viewing and listening audience to understand it's not where you start. It's where you continue to go, that you don't stop, and that you keep moving and setting your goals, setting new intentions.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that, Paul. It's beautiful. It's keeping a relentless focus on our goals, and our goals are probably underlined, it's most likely undergirded by our values. And just keep going at it, and not stopping. Hard work is part of it, but I would also say self-discipline. Now that's a value, self-discipline. Being able to stay with something and be consistent with it. And it does pay off. It pays off. Just like you can pay off debt, you can have goals that pay off, where you finally see yourself arrive to a place that you kind of envision. So yeah, it's possible. Anything is possible. This, it doesn't matter how much debt you have today. There are so many stories of people becoming debt-free and moving toward this place of financial independence. And even when I say financial independence, I'm not trying to necessarily be a millionaire, or I don't mind if I could be, but it's not necessarily the goal. I mean, I do believe there's a book, I forgot who wrote it, but it's like, do what you love and the money will follow. I believe that. If you do the work you love, the money will follow. It just will. And you'll get so lost in the work, and you'll be so excellent in the work that the money will just come. And that's what I mean when I say the money isn't the driver. It may be a means to something, but it's making a difference. It's achievement. It's doing work that is valuable. But it's possible, no matter where you are.
So
step by step, small baby steps.
Some people may call it an objective. Some may say it's a goal. Some of us call them affirmations. But you also led another group many, many years ago, and you had us to do vision boards.
Oh, wow. Ooh,
I still have mine. It's still hanging in my phone. And 5 years later, I achieved everything on my vision board. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow. That is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. And I didn't know I was doing it. It was all subconscious.
Yes.
But I saw it. I saw it every night, and it's just there. It's in the background, but it's there, very visible. And I was talking to my great nieces and nephews this week. They're here visiting from New York, like I said. And we did affirmations. We did 5-minute meditation for children. And I said, let's set up a vision board. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? So this gets into what you're saying about the benefits of being aligned. Aligning yourself. Yeah. What does this aligning ourselves mean? Does it mean working from day to day, getting our paychecks, cashing it, paying our bills, going back to work? What does this aligning ourselves and our thoughts and our behaviors mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, the alignment are some of the things that I talked about of what to do to stay focused on the goals, and vision board is another one. It's another one. It's a form of reflection. It's a form of goal setting. It's a form of seeing it. They say, you see it, then you can believe it, or you believe it, and then you'll see it, which is kind of what the vision board is. You believe it, I'm sitting here. I've got like 3 of my vision boards not far from me, and I've got one that's in play now. And for me too, Paul, probably most of my things have come to pass. It's a little, it's a good scary. It's like, ooh, be careful what you believe for, what you see for, because it will come. What are you calling into to manifestation? Another thing I didn't talk about is charity. When you're in a position where you can give to others, I've been able to give to this charity, this organization. I was able to give to my church. I was able to sort of live beyond myself. So then you get into the higher piece of legacy, like, what are you setting up for when you're no longer on the planet? Being able to give beyond yourself, even with your money. And Paula, you always talk about leaving an inheritance for your family, leaving something. Not just insurance. If you can leave some money, if you can leave some investment, leave a home, it passes on to the next generation.
But it is about generational wealth, right? It doesn't have to be financial in nature, but you have your oldest beautiful daughter in the university here in Maryland because you're leaving a legacy of education and you recognize the value of education, right? So let's talk about executive coaching. When you're sitting in these meetings with multi-millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars executives, what do you say to them? How do you bring your knowledge base so that they can understand how to better their corporation and their employees?
Well, the first place I start is around values, Paula. That's the first thing I do when I'm coaching. And I've coached primarily women of color. But a first place we start is, what are your values? Because their desire is usually around wanting to be promoted to an officer position or the next level. Or it's needing balance because they're juggling a lot of things, or they're wanting clarity, or they're wanting fulfillment. It could be a number of things, but the first place we start is values. And I have a conversation around like what's happening, whether it's that day or whether it's the event. And we always sort of talk from, so how does that relate to your values? Where are there the gaps? Where are you feeling congruency? So let's talk about that. And that's what coaching is. It's a conversation that helps partner with somebody and stand alongside them and help guide them to whatever goals they're setting up. They may have 3 to 4 goals of what they want to accomplish.
How do I say to my listening and viewing audience, if you want it, faith trumps fear. Do it anyway. So if you were coaching me and I think I want to start a business. I want to start a business called Money Minutes That Matter, a talk show. What would you tell me?
Oh, wow. I would say talk to Paula Roberts. She's already doing it now. We would talk about what it looks like, a little bit like your vision board, and what it feels like. How do you see yourself in that? What's going on with you? I always do a lot of somatic work in my coaching of what does it feel like? How are you in that space? And then we'd say, okay, what might be some concrete goals to kind of get you there? And then I use various tools, whether it's readings or exercises, or it may even be mindfulness work to help sort of unearth what are the blockages inside. Because sometimes they're limiting beliefs. You could be holding a limiting belief of, I'm not worthy enough to have my own business, or having your own business is an unstable business. So part of what we do is sort of look at what are the beliefs that support your desires and what are the ones that go against them. And we unpack them and we talk about it. But it's providing support along the way, support for, who are some of the people you admire who have their businesses, looking at some of the things they're doing in terms of running their businesses, looking at what's working, what's not working. So it really is a whole tool chest of things to look at. But anything is possible if you just need to start with the idea of, and the heart, really with the heart desire of wanting to do it. And then having the support around you, maybe having a brain trust of others who are around you, maybe a support team like our Women's Life Group, rallying and supporting each other, holding each other accountable. I believe in accountability partners, people who will hold you accountable. Like if you're saying, I'm going to do X, Y, Z for my business, going to register the name. I'm going to work on the logo. I'm going to work on the website, and I'm going to call potential three business development, opportunities or whatever.
Or school. So what if I say to you that within my community, there are not a lot of entrepreneurs. I don't know anyone who hasn't been in debt. I don't know anyone who has a professional career. How do I align myself so that I can continue to prosper and achieve my dreams?
No, I think that's true for a lot of people. Sometimes what I've seen is it just takes one person to believe in you. One person. It doesn't have to be a family member. It doesn't have to be somebody in your community. It can be somebody in your job who says, wow, Paula, I really see this competency in you, this really brilliant skill and ability. That really raises our sense of self-worth. And people did that for me too. They sort of looked me in the eye and saw things and said, Lorraine, I see this, or I see that, or you're really going to do this. And sure, it was the same way for you. And I think business owners, a big piece for business owners and entrepreneurs is being a self-motivator. You're going to have some inner drive, some inner sense. And then I'll say the other thing is prayer. I'm a faith person. I believe a lot of things have manifested for me because of faith and because I believe in the divine presence of God in my life. And so that has been a saving grace for me in many instances.
But as an executive coach, I appreciate, I know the value of what you bring to our relationship as the two of us when we sit and we talk, or amongst our women friends, amongst, when I asked you to speak before my children, hey, Lorraine, can you talk to my children, find out what's going on with them, make sure that they're in a direction and that they're strategizing on how to get there. So I think it's important that we hear from women like you. I know that you're beautiful, intelligent, you're worthy, and you're more than enough.
Thank you. And so are you, Paula. You're beautiful, you're worthy.
Oh, thank you.
And just to hear it, right? It just does something, right? When you hear another woman say that to you.
Because sometimes we don't value each other. We don't value each other as sisters. There is no competition in us, right? I love you. I believe in you. I want the best for you and your family and vice versa. And I think what you and I have as our women's group, it's unique. Before I was like, oh, women are kind of funky. Don't mess with the women.
I know, because women can be catty, right? Women.
But sitting down with you as an executive coach who created their career path, who sat in the meetings with all of these well-educated, well-versed, multi-generational wealth earners, and they're turning to you to say, how can I do it better? I think my viewing audience can more than value that. I will, watch me. That's Oprah's line for this year. Her 2020 vision tour is, I will, watch me.
Watch me. Oh, I love that.
Isn't that amazing? So I want the viewing audience and listening audience to hear and say it to themselves. Look in the mirror. Say, I'm beautiful, I'm worthy, and I'm enough.
And I'm enough.
I will, watch me.
Oh, I love that, Paula. Oh, that's exciting.
Well, I love you and I appreciate you for being on my show.
Thank you, Paula, for having me. This is a fun conversation.
This is
and
awesome.
I hope your viewers are inspired to start with just a small kernel of belief in their heart that anything is possible. Anything is possible with managing money, with managing other goals, with getting connected to your values. Just start somewhere. So this has been fun. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye, Paula.
Bye, Lorraine. Wow. Was this not an amazing show? Lorraine Gordon is brilliant. She's soft-spoken, but she lands with a big stick. Why? Because her intelligence shows in all that she does. She's not new to this. She recognized that anything that you bring your inner self to and strategically plan and map out, it can be accomplished. I want you to know and understand that if you want to become an entrepreneur, if you want to start something, Mark Zuckerberg, Oprah Winfrey, LeBron James, Robert Smith, who are these people? How did they start out? Who started Microsoft but Mr. Bill Gates? Who are these people? What did they have that we also can attain? We weren't all born with silver spoons, but if we put our minds to it, all things are possible. I believe that in my heart. Remember, debt is a disease that can be cured, that faith conquers fear. Keep jamming with EAJ1023radio.com. I love you and have an amazing day.